What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Down Dog Athletics Podcast, a competitor's guide to mental health and mastery. My name is Paul Klingen, and I am your host. I want to thank you guys all for listening. If you haven't yet, shooting you a reminder, leave a 5-star rating and review. That helps me get on really cool people on in this podcast, like the one that we have today. So, 2 years ago, I got the idea for Down Dog Athletics. I was an athlete. I started doing yoga, saw huge changes in my life. I was like, oh, I'll just fuse the two. And it was probably 4 or 5 months later, someone said, hey, have you heard of ManFlow Yoga? And I was like, no, I haven't. Let me look it up. And since then, I've really looked up to ManFlow Yoga. The founder's name is Dean Pohlman, but I've really looked up to him. And he's the CEO and yoga beast of ManFlow Yoga. He's got, I think, 76,000 subscribers now on YouTube, and has got a huge platform and a ton of different products for men looking to get into yoga that is non-spiritual. And I think that's a really cool thing to make yoga more accessible. He's got a background in athletics, and I'm really excited to have him on. So here we go. Dean Pohlman of ManFlow Yoga.
What's up, Dean? Thanks for taking the time to come on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Paul. It was cool to hear you reach out and cool to see that you're doing something athletic with yoga. So I was interested in talking more.
Yeah, I mean, you were one of the first guys that I found doing yoga when I got into it. I was like, do guys do this? Like, is there an athlete version? Is there a guy version? I was like, ManFlow Yoga, sweet, right to the point. Let's just be straight to it. And so I was reading your story on your website and have been following you, and I find it really interesting how you got into it and how you were a lacrosse player, right? That was like your main sport in college.
Yeah, so I played lacrosse at the University of Wisconsin, and I think I had just gotten back from working abroad that semester, and I had done no cardio, I had done no dynamic workouts whatsoever. So I was like super huge. I was really muscly, but like no mobility and no cardio. So I went to I think I literally stumbled into a yoga studio. I was going to go to the gym anyways after that, but I was on the way looking for a tailor, and I stumbled into a yoga studio. It was a Bikram studio, and I asked them, is this going to help me as a lacrosse player? They're like, oh yeah, it'll help. You work on your mobility and your core strength. And I'm like, all right, whatever. I'll give this a shot. And it was the most challenging workout I've ever done. I remember being halfway through it, and they said, okay, now we're done with the first half. I'm like, are you kidding me? That was the first half?
Yeah.
Anyways, that was, and the challenge of that kept me coming back, because I'm always interested in challenging myself. And if I do something that, I'm not good at, but it doesn't hurt me the next day, then I'm like, okay, this is something that's good for you. If you can do a workout that is really challenging, but doesn't hurt, then you're like, all right, this is good.
Yeah.
So I kept coming back for the challenge, and within a month, and I'd say within 2 to 3 months of doing yoga about 3 to 6 times per week, I was like, oh wow, I feel totally different. And I felt way more nimble. I felt like my body was more efficient. I felt like I still had as much strength as I did, but I didn't feel as bulky. And I just felt way more in control of my body. So the body awareness thing and the breathing just skyrocketed as a result of just doing a couple of months of yoga. But yeah, that was how I got started.
Yeah. What did your buddies at Wisconsin say when you're like, dude, you guys, like, were you telling them to come to yoga, or were you kind of keeping it under wraps?
No, I told I'm not scared about talking about anything that I do. And yoga was not an exception to that. But I would try to get a couple people to come, and some of them would say, all right, I'll try it. But others were like, no, I'm not going to a yoga class. No way. And I was really taken back. I'm like, really? You won't come to a yoga class?
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, you've been like, I mean, you've seen me work out. You've seen me on the lacrosse field. Like I was literally the workhorse. I was the workhorse of the team.
Yeah.
Like, I ran more than anybody. I cleared the ball. I scored goals. I played defense. I was the workhorse of the team. So I thought that just my approval of yoga alone would be enough, but it was not. So eventually I started doing it with them. So I was the conditioning coach. It's D1 club. So we didn't really have, we didn't have like a conditioning coach or athletic trainer. So so I was the conditioning coach. So some days we would do, sprints and calisthenics and that kind of thing. But other days I'm like, all right, we're going to do yoga today. I'm like, what? Fine. And then after the first thing, they're like, can we do this every time? Because it was a totally different aspect of fitness. And they finished, they're like, oh, wow, like this feels great. This is awesome. So I just made them do it. And that's kind of that's how ManFlow Yoga started. I started by just basically teaching my lacrosse teammates, and I created the YouTube channel because I wanted them to keep doing the workouts over winter break.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'll make some videos, and I recorded some really awful videos with horrible lighting in my home office, my mom's office, when I was home on break. And yeah, that was and there's also some really great videos where you only see like my chest down.
Yeah.
From some of the first videos that I had. It was back in like 2012 or 2013, because I was just recording like in my dorm bedroom, not a dorm, but like my college bedroom. And there's one where I'm recording in the kitchen, and there's like music in the background, and it's pretty funny. But those videos have like 50,000 views. I have no idea how, but they're
right. Well,
they're still there.
I think that's one of the things. I was scrolling down through your YouTube channel. I was like, how long has this guy been doing this? And I got like, 6 years. And I was like, these are just videos. There, he ripped it. And that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is like social media and content. It's always like quality, quality, quality. But then also good content will trump, something that's super produced, but just not that good. And so at the time, were you just like, were you worried about the quality of the content? Or you're just like, I'm just got to put it out there. And then obviously you get better as you continue to do it.
I remember actually back then, I didn't even look at what I uploaded. I recorded it, and I recorded it, and I put it into the like iMovie or whatever I was using to video edit, and then I exported it and I uploaded it.
Yeah.
I didn't even, because for me, there was never, at that point, I was never thinking this is going to be a business. It was just me uploading videos to YouTube because I thought, my whole thing was, okay, let's try and get more guys doing yoga. If they see a guy who's athletic and who lifts weights and works out, maybe guys like me will be more willing to do yoga. So I was just trying to record and put out workouts in a way that said, hey, here's a guy who works out, who's an athlete, who does yoga. And so a lot of that was creating and a lot of that was just saying all of that with just the right image, right? Because a lot of guys don't want to do yoga if it's presented in a way that doesn't resonate with them.
Right.
So I was trying to present yoga in a way that would have resonated with me.
Yep.
And that's still what we do. We have a 4-person team now, but what we do with our imagery and what we do with our marketing is it's always directed at, okay, how can I present this in a way that's a guy who hasn't done yoga before but might be curious about it would want to do it. We don't want to be doing poses that look super vulnerable or are just about passive flexibility. We want to be showing something where you look strong and where you look healthy and where you look like, okay, I can do this, and I can also see this translating into sports or translating into strength training. So back then it was just about putting out content that says, hey, here's a jack guy doing yoga, and maybe some other guy will want to do yoga because of that, who hasn't done yoga before.
Yeah, totally. I think that's one thing I've noticed is you get any marketing from like the biggest yoga companies, and it's slim leggings, skinny women, passive flexibility. They're great athletes, but I can't relate to standing splits at all. I can barely relate to like 25-degree angle splits. And so when you see that, or maybe you see, and I don't want to like disparage or talk bad about it, but it's harder for someone in a sports environment to relate to like more of the Eastern side of yoga or man buns or different things like that. And again, everyone has something that resonates with them. And I would challenge people to kind of question where they're having these beliefs as to like, this is for me, this isn't, because of an image. But to your point, people want to do things where they're like, oh, that's me. Like, I totally relate to that. And I feel like you did a really good job of striking a chord where it's literally like, ManFlow yoga. You call yourself Yoga Beast. Like, that's something where if I'm a guy, I'm like, oh, sick. I'm down to do this. When you So you started it, and a lot of times it was targeted towards men. Did you run into any issues where women are like, "Hey, can I do this?" Or did you alienate them, or
Oh
did
yeah,
they find like, "Oh, I'm looking for the same thing athletically or performance wise"?
yeah. I mean, I got comments. I responded to a YouTube comment yesterday from someone asking, "Hey, I'm a girl. Can I do this?" I think it's funny that people have to. I think it's funny that people ask permission.
Yeah.
Like, is it okay if I do your free YouTube video? Yes. But it was always created. I think I called it manful yoga originally because as a man going into a yoga studio, I was just uninterested in the spiritual, emotional aspects that were being presented.
Right.
I'm like, manflow yoga. A man, when he works out, wants to work out, right? So a lot of that was just like the stereotypical, okay, most guys who are going to a yoga studio just want to go there to work out. So we're going to make it all fitness focused. So really what I say by manflow yoga is it's fitness focused yoga that's made for someone who's not as flexible as a yogi. So it's for inflexible beginners who are focused on building strength or focused on improving their performance with yoga. And initially, it was very much focused on. Initially, I thought that I was just going to get a bunch of like other jacked 23-year-olds, 22-year-olds like doing yoga, and that was not what happened at all. So that was kind of funny. I don't know why I expected that to happen. But what really developed was it was guys who were older, who were in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, who would never have been able to do a typical yoga class because they're just not that flexible, and they don't have. They're just not that flexible. So I don't know how I got onto that subject, but the point is, manful yoga was originally just meant to. It was a name that was meant to call out to typical guys who are fitness focused.
Yeah. Well, I think what you were just talking about though is super important, and how when someone call like birds of paradise, and if you're just coming into a class and you're like, I can't do that, that's the equivalent of someone being in a fitness class and they're like, all right, dumbbell snatch, grab your 60s, and someone's like, I can't do that. And so it's not relatable.
Exactly.
And I think it's a big thing with the ego too, where they're like, oh, I can get into this. And it's like, dude, it's all right. Like you can't, and you don't need to.
Right.
I know that was something I really struggled with at first, where I was like, oh, you won't see me chin stand. Like I'll chin stand. And the next thing I know, like my shoulders are jacked up. I'm falling into the mirror, and it just wasn't necessary for me.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really cool that you make it accessible to all the different levels. And obviously you've worked with a full spectrum of people, men, women, all sorts of different ages. But I think like that 40, 50-year-old male, like I was looking on your site, it's like Navy veterans, fathers, people who work in like labor industries, like those are people that can seriously benefit. And so it's super cool that you focused it in that direction. Are there any elements that you do focus that are breathing specific? Like I know you mentioned, you were saying you're like, you would just run end to end on the field. And I know how much yoga helps my breathing, helps me stay in control of it from an athletic, from a speaking perspective. Is there anything you were doing with that? Is there anything that you're doing now?
Yeah. So I actually get criticized about this a lot because I don't focus as much on breathing as other yoga instructors. So like it's very unlikely that you will see like a 15-minute yoga session or like a 15-minute portion of my workout where we're only focused on breathing.
Yeah.
More likely, we're going to start off with some core focused exercises or some spinal mobility and hip activation exercises that do have a breathing component, but we're never going to start off in like a seated, like a cross-legged position doing 5 minutes of breath work. And I don't do, I don't even know what it's called. Honestly, I forgot.
Alternate nostril breathing. I actually was just doing some of that yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that the science is there and that, it helps with activating your sympathetic nervous system, and it helps with creativity. And I've seen I've read about that, but that's just not the focus of manful yoga. So we do emphasize like proper breathing, using your full diaphragm, and how to breathe while maintaining core engagement. There's a ton of emphasis on maintaining slow, controlled breathing. I probably say that once every 3 minutes in my classes, in my workouts. And one other way that I reinforce the breathing is I just do it very audibly on the microphone.
Yeah.
So I don't say it, but I'm doing it into the microphone, and then people hear that and they're like, oh, he's breathing, right? So there are reinforcers of breathing, and I do touch on it very often, but I don't do a ton of different breath exercises. I just integrate it into the yoga postures.
Yeah, because a lot of what you do is it has elements of yoga, but it also you can like bring in a different like kettlebell or dumbbell. Like it all kind of flows with
Mm-hmm.
different levels, different types and styles of fitness, as opposed to being super purely yoga. Is there when you're teaching, is a lot of it focused on muscle activation and proper form the same way any athlete would be like, all right, if you're going to squat, like everything needs to be rock solid?
Yeah. So that's a huge focus of what ManFlow yoga has evolved into is muscle activation. Like call it whatever you want. I was actually just writing a blog on this today. Call it muscle activation, call it muscle engagement, call it motor control, call it mobility, call it mind-body awareness. If you're a yogi, that's what you'll call it. But the point is that muscle activation is so important. And that's something that I've actually developed an entire course on muscle activation called the Strength Foundations course. And that's something that's incredibly important to our workouts, to the point that I don't even, it's called ManFlow yoga, but what you're getting from a ManFlow yoga workout compared to like just a typical vinyasa class that you go to and visit your local studio, it's not the same, and the benefits are totally different too. To the point where like I need to, when I'm writing blogs now, and when I write or when I make videos, I have to say like, hey, this is what these workouts will do, but I can't guarantee that any random yoga workout that you do is going to help with this. So it's kind of really hard to create content because people are searching for benefits of yoga.
Yeah.
Or they're searching for like yoga for men benefits, and they're coming to, my content or my videos or my blogs, and they're reading about, okay, so I just need to go to a yoga class. And I'm like everywhere as often as I can without making it sound like I'm plugging ManFlow yoga too much. I'm like, okay, but if you don't do it in this specific way, you're not going to get these benefits. So muscle activation is huge to what we do with ManFlow yoga. And it's because most other workouts don't do anything with muscle activation.
Yeah.
And that's, as an athlete and as someone who lifts weights and as someone who, who does calisthenics and lots of different types of exercise, that's what was most beneficial to me, was actually slowing down, doing these isometric exercises and improving my muscle engagement. When you try to replace strength elements that you could get more effectively from other workouts with yoga, right? So if you're trying to replace your cardio workout with like a power yoga workout, you could, but why would you? Right? There's other ways that are so much more effective than that. So that's where I run into like a lot of, I run into a lot of these conversations with yogis where, it's like, you could build muscle with yoga and it helps with building muscle, but are you going to get like super jacked with yoga? No. So don't try to trick people into thinking they're going to get jacked with yoga, or try to say weightlifting's dumb. It makes your muscles bulky, and, yoga helps you develop fine balanced muscles with, it's like,
yeah, no, totally. When people are like, use yoga to build strength, I think strength can be used in so many different ways, but using yoga to build strength is like walking across the country versus taking an airplane. Sure, you can get across the country that way, but you're probably better off flying, or at least taking a car. And so to your point, whether it's cardio, whether it's strength, you can do it, but running is going to be better for your heart, right? And it's not that there isn't science to it, because again, it's Eastern science, Western science. What I find really interesting is if you go on different yoga sites, it's like, do this twist and it'll filter out your organs and all this stuff. And I'm like, wait, does it actually do that? I don't know, maybe, like kind of. And so where you're coming from is you're like, all right, this is how it relates in more of like a training standpoint, where there is a lot of science based. And it's like, if you want to do this as effectively as possible, to your point, like you got to kind of break out the two a little bit. Like if you're looking for yoga specific things, strength training for specific things, here's where those two come together.
Yeah. So what I try to do with ManFlow Yoga is try to make it like, how can we make this as effective as possible for your fitness? But you know, we're fighting like, you know, we are fighting preconceptions of what yoga is and what other yoga instructors have told people that are based on yoga gurus who just made it up. Just one day they were like, you know what, I'm going to say this, and people took that as fact, and that's not a fact. You know, so you're fighting things that have been repeated to the point where people think they're facts, but they're really not. Like, they're not actually based on any sort of empirical data. Like, there's not a lot of exercise science behind yoga. There is some. There is a lot. Actually, I'm not saying a lot. There is some though. One book, if you haven't read this yet, I'd highly recommend it. And if you're interested in learning about the real benefits of yoga, is The Science of Yoga by William J. Broad. I think he's from the University of Wisconsin. Actually, I think he was a Pulitzer winner. Don't quote me on that, but I think he is. But he wrote a book on yoga, and you know, he dives into all of the studies that have shown, okay, yoga has been shown to do this, but then I'll also call out a lot of the yoga gurus and a lot of the problems with yoga. Like, a lot of yoga instructors get back surgery, and they don't talk about it.
Yeah.
They're doing too many forward folds. They're not focusing on active muscle engagement. And so they'll run into shoulder problems, and they'll run into spine issues because of the way that they're practicing yoga. So, you know, what I'm trying to do is, okay, cool. This is great. There's a great system of fitness here, but let's make it more appropriate, and let's focus on how we can make it as effective as possible, rather than just, you know, taking it directly from a yoga studio that's really not based on fitness, because yoga studios and yoga in general is not just a fitness thing, right? It's a fitness and a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
But when you're moving your body, you need to have attention to detail. So if you're going to a yoga class that's part fitness, part spiritual, but you're not getting the attention on the physical that you need, then there's potential for injury, and there's, you know, potential for discomfort or pain. So anyways, there's just a lot of things that I think, you know, if you want to make yoga a workout, you need to change it. To make it more effective. So that's what I try to do.
Totally. I think the shoulder and the spine problems especially are things that I've run into, at least in how long I've been doing it, and just like how much we're internally rotated with our posture and everything. To your point, 3,000 years ago, when they're coming up with different yoga poses, one, it's not exercise science based. It's not peer reviewed, everything that we have today. Two, society was different. And people weren't sitting at their desks. People weren't on their phones. People weren't playing Xbox. People weren't seated in their cars the entire time. So there has to be a little bit more of an emphasis on the posterior chain, especially, which yoga really just doesn't get unless you know how to activate your glutes. A lot of people are going to be quad dominant, going to be in their knees. To your point, back bend, or forward fold, forward fold, forward fold. You got to have some stability before you go into that mobility.
Yeah, and that's why all of the workouts that I do start with some muscle activation in your hips, in your core. You know, you have to address the fact that all these muscles that you're supposed to be using were turned off for the entire day. You were sitting at your desk, you were driving, you were on your phone, and those muscles just aren't going to do what they're supposed to do. You have to do the proper exercises to get those muscles to re-engage, or they're not going to do anything. You know, and if you do practice yoga, and if you do go on to do your workout and you're not using those muscles, like you said, you're going to be using your quads instead of your hamstrings and your glutes. You're going to be using your lower back instead of your core.
Yeah.
You're going to be using your shoulders and your chest instead of your scapular stabilizers. So you're not using the back of your body. And yeah, yoga needs to account for that. You know, the reality of what we're doing during the day. And to take, you know, anyways, yeah, the workouts need to be more focused on what our body needs as a result of what we're doing.
Yeah. Outside of ManFlow yoga, are there any other like certs or areas where you've kind of dove in from the fitness realm to kind of add this in? Like, I'm thinking like, I'd love to do an FRC and kind of like weave that in. Are there any other things that you incorporate, or is it all just a ton of study, a ton of personal practice that you're helping share, plus what anecdotes you're getting from clients?
Yeah. most of what I've learned has been experiential or has been from reading. So I've got, I do a lot of, I've got strength training books. I've read a lot of yoga books. I do follow a lot of people, and I understand the concepts of FRC.
Yeah.
So functional range conditioning.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with that concept, but a lot of this is like I've been working out since I was 6. You know, like I've been doing sports training since I was 6 years old. I've been doing core exercises, and I've been lifting since I was 15. So like a lot of these things are just things that I've been doing my entire life, and have just been refining for the last 25 years. So I don't have. I think at one point I thought about getting certified as a personal trainer, and there was no need. I have a Yoga Alliance certification just because I needed something. But, I'm almost waiting for them to send me an email and just say like, hey, we reviewed one of your blogs and you're not a yogi, so we're going to take certification. Hasn't happened yet, but if they did, I would probably just say, okay, whatever. But yeah, so most of my knowledge comes from practicing it, comes from just being curious in general, and trying to, and I don't pretend to be an expert in other areas. Like I don't pretend to be an expert in nutrition or weight training. I will defer to other people, and I'll go and actually meet up with those people in person. Something that's cool about what I do in the stage that I have is that I can go to these people and I'm like, hey, look, I run this thing called ManFlow Yoga. We've got 185,000 people online. We've got a members area with over 5,000 members. So like, can we meet up, and can you just talk me through this one thing, or can you talk me through, we'll spend an hour going over this particular thing. So I have been able to connect with people and learn from them. But as to getting more formal study, that's been something that I've considered, but it hasn't been something it's been a priority right now.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to something that's really cool, and just like action. Like people can like cert, but at the end of the day, like doing it is going to trump like being on the field, in the gym, in the studio, wherever you're at. Like working with people is super important. You've worked with thousands, hundreds of thousands. I'm curious what I'll let you
I was going to say, like, there's and there's RYTs, there's yoga instructors who have gotten their 300, 500-hour teacher training, but they can't hold down a yoga class. So, it's like certifications are helpful, but I look at certifications as a form of credibility.
Yeah.
But I have the reviews, and I have the success stories, and I have the customers that say, oh, this dude is good, I'm going to keep using him. So like, I don't necessarily need other certifications because I already have the credibility.
Yeah.
So that's another way that I look at those. Like, it's not something that I need. I'm helping people with what I have right now. So unless I want to significantly, change the scope of what I do, then those just aren't helpful too. It's not necessary to what I'm doing currently.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, what's your current workout routine? Like, is it a mix of yoga in the morning, in the evening, then you go to the gym? Is it alternating days? Is it a mixture of the two? Maybe some other things as well?
Yeah. So like my workout routine involves every morning I'll go for a walk for like 15, 20 minutes. I'll take the dogs on a walk. I sometimes will do yoga in the mornings, but it's totally dependent on what my body needs. So I'll have some sort of morning movement that usually includes a walk, and then I'll do yoga. I'll do yoga as a workout, probably 2 to 3 times a week, where either I'm recording a workout or I'm doing something on my own where I'm specifically focusing on yoga. But I'll add yoga into like all of my other workouts too. Like all of my workouts or all of my warm-ups involve yoga. So like I'll spend 10 to 20 minutes doing a warm-up with some sort of yoga inspired warm-up. So doing boat pose, doing some muscle activation exercises. So I wrote a blog on like all the different things that I consider yoga, and there's so many different things that I consider part of my yoga practice
Yeah.
that it's hard to separate them. So like anything where, basically for me, anything that I would consider yoga is anything that falls into body weight exercise that's mostly static.
Yeah.
Right? So, and it also includes mobility work. So there's a lot of things that fall into that yoga category. But basically for me, aside from that, I try to hit, right now I'm trying to get into the habit of doing 2 to 3 lifting sessions per week. And they're not that long. They're like 30 to 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So, and I usually stack those with a yoga workout. So I'll start with yoga kind of as a warm up, and then I'll go into lifting, and I'll do 3 to 4 exercises. So my lifting routines are really, they're very short. There's not a lot of volume compared to others. But I do more reps with Olympic lifting.
Yeah.
I'll do 3 sets of 10 of, deadlift or hex bar deadlift or back squat or front squat. And then I'll do 1 or 2 more shorter sets.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a lot of volume with those. That was a very long way of saying I do yoga or some sort of movement in the mornings for 20, 25 minutes. I'll do 2 to 3 yoga sessions per week where it's exclusively yoga, and that's anywhere from 30 to 75 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I'll try to do 2 to 3 sessions per week, or 2 to 3 resistance training sessions per week. I also have a chest freezer in my backyard where I'll do ice baths. Like I try to do it every day. It usually comes up to 6 times per week for 2 to 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's part of recovery or part of waking up.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, what you talked about at the very beginning of the podcast is kind of what I feel like you addressed in that the best ability is availability. It's stuff that is super sustainable that you can keep doing over and over versus like a 90-minute Bikram class where you're just wrecked the next day, or 2 hours in the gym where you're like, I can't even walk.
Yeah.
And so I think that's super cool, super sustainable. And I think that's the area where fitness is starting to go, like the go balls to the wall, just explode every single muscle is going away. And people are more like, all right, do something that you can do till you're 50, 60, 70. Because you look at The Rock, the guy's 50. I mean, you got plenty of time to keep working out.
Yeah. Longevity
For sure. Curious, like, on what the benefits that you hear from clients coming back are a lot of them physical, or do some of them, come to you and they're like, hey man, I'm in such like a better like mental space. A big thing that I'm big on my podcast is mental health in conjunction with physical health. And for me, yoga provided a really good opportunity to get into meditation and mental health. Is that stuff that your clients, because you've seen so many more success stories, is that something you have seen with them?
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is like I don't have to necessarily talk about that for it to happen. When you're exercising regularly and you're doing it in a way that focuses on your body awareness and your breathing, you just feel better. Not to mention if you're doing yoga in a way that helps to combat a sedentary lifestyle, if it helps to work on your posture and it helps in addressing common problem areas, then you're going to feel better too. And that's going to put you in a better mood. If you can do something, in the mornings, like we just did a morning yoga challenge. If you can do a few minutes of yoga in the morning, that's going to set you up for a better day. You're going to have better energy levels. You'll be more in a fitness mindset. I've had a lot of people talk to me about how this has served as like a catalyst.
Yeah.
To helping them transform their lives for the better, going into that mental state, going into the improved mental health thing just because they're working out regularly.
Yeah.
We do talk a lot about, I do talk a lot about, improving yourself mentally too. Stress relief is a huge part of what I promote. Mindfulness is big, having a morning, having an evening routine. So I kind of see all of it as just reinforcing each other.
Yeah, good habits just in general. One thing I'm curious with is your schedule and routine, because one thing you've been so good with is consistency with your content. Is that
Mhm.
stuff that at this point is just like autopilot, or are there certain parameters that you've set where you're super protective of your time, or is it stuff that you still struggle with?
I was thinking about this. I was like, oh, he's going to ask me that question. I'm going to have to think about this answer. Um, so it's something that comes and goes. So, sometimes you're going to be like very focused on creating content, and other times you're just going to be, let me get the bare minimum done, or I'm just not. And part of that is just accepting that you're going to have creative phases and you're going to have non-creative phases.
Totally.
So, this past year for me has been incredibly busy. I January from January 20, or even from December, actually no, even before then. Yeah, it was from December. So from like December 2018 all the way up through June of 2019, I was just kind of balls to the wall with everything in life. We were working on a new set of DVDs. Um, if I didn't mention this, I have a bunch of DVDs on Amazon that do very well. We've actually sold over like 30,000 DVDs on Amazon in the past couple of years.
Oh, wow.
So we were working on another round of those DVDs. We launched a cork yoga mat. In addition to that, I was planning my wedding and also buying a house. So looking at houses, planning the wedding, doing this DVD project, that was all stuff on the side, in addition to running ManFlow Yoga, and having not just me, but 3 people that I'm working with. So during that time, I think we put out like a total of 3 blogs or something, just incredibly low like that. So, during that time, I wasn't very, content focused.
Yeah.
We still put out our weekly workouts. We still recorded our weekly workouts. And that's something that I've done pretty consistently for the last, 6 years, recording workouts. But it took me a while to get back into that creative phase. So, in June when it all finished, and even after I came back from my honeymoon in July, I was like, all right, here's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
I needed like a solid kind of a solid month and a half break where
Yeah.
I step back and I'm like, okay, like we can't keep doing things the way that we've been doing. We need to figure out a different way to do them. But I found that the key to creating content is experiencing things, honestly. If you're not experiencing life, if you're not trying new things, if you're not breaking up your routine, then you're not going to have things to write about. At least with passion, you can always write about, I get questions all the time from people in my members area, people on social media, people who email me. So I know what the questions are from people, and I've addressed a lot of those in different types of content. A lot of what we also do is we've got a guy on our team who is very focused on data and SEO research, search engine optimization research. So figuring out like, okay, well, what are guys searching for when they're trying to learn about yoga?
Yeah.
And so a lot of what we do is also figuring out how to create content based on that. So there's a lot of different ways to create content, but ultimately the only way to do it, with passion, I think, is to make sure that you are continually developing interest in what you do, and that you're experiencing new things. So that has, that's a question that I get asked a lot, actually. I was, I think the last guy I spoke, do you know Sean Beeg?
Yeah, I've heard of. I've seen him on YouTube, right?
Yeah. And I've been on his podcast too. And that was a question that we talked about. He just cranks out workouts. He just puts out content like nonstop. And I also had a conversation with the Broga guys. And that was one question they had for me was, how do you keep making content? Like, do you feel burnt out? But it's for me, it's so much of what I do that, But I also, to address another point, I do protect my time. I think I have like 3 scheduled lessons per week right now. I used to do like 25.
Yeah.
And now I do them either I do them in the morning and get them out of the way, or I do them in the afternoon. I typically don't schedule things until after 1 p.m. So my mornings are very protected. If I feel like I need more protection, I'll work from home rather than going into the office. So I do protect my time, and I try to create content that's not going to require additional time. Like it's not going to require face-to-face time.
Yeah.
So a lot of what I try to create, I'll anticipate questions. So, because ultimately, if I can't create content, I'm not going to be able to reach, I'm not going to be able to achieve what I want to achieve. So I do have to, a lot of what I've done with ManFlow Yoga has been creating it in a way that protects my time and protects my creative ability.
Yeah.
So that was a very long answer. Sorry.
No, it was good. It was really detailed. I think you speak to something that's super important, and like maybe it's not scalability is the way to put it, but like the stuff that you're creating will last over a long period of time, versus being like super specific or just working with someone one-on-one. Curious, when does that DVD drop on Amazon?
It is so we finished filming in June. Finished in May and June, and it still has to go through post-production. So they're huge operations. They're not, we have 5 cameras. We rent out an entire venue for it. There's like 15 people running around. So there's huge operations. They're not done with just one guy and 2 cameras.
Yeah.
So they do take a long time to go through post-production. I expect it will take at least 3 to 6 more months for the next one of those DVDs to drop. Right now we have something called Yoga Boost out. That's like our most popular program. It's a beginner's yoga program for people who don't do yoga. So it's kind of like similar to what I do with ManFlow Yoga, but it's more flowy, and there's not as much focus on muscle activation. So it's more flowy. It's easier to follow along to, and it's more enjoyable to follow
moving along. Yeah.
Yeah. Because with Amazon, people aren't just there because they're interested in your muscle activation focus, right? They want to do a workout. They want to do a workout that's fun and enjoyable. So if I put a muscle activation DVD on Amazon, people will be like, he had me sitting in this pose and it was so uncomfortable for over 45 seconds, and I turned it off the first workout. So
yeah,
they're structured differently.
Good example of knowing your audience.
Yeah.
When you're in front, you obviously record a ton of video, and when you're on camera a lot, you either got to do retakes or you got to be rock solid for like 15 minutes. Does that ever just drive you crazy where you're like 1 minute from being done and then you're like, you stumble on your words? Do you just roll with it, or you're like, blow it all up, we're redoing it again?
I have never gotten 15 minutes into something and then messed up and then say, blow it up or doing it again. I think when I first made some videos, like we were working on a project, I think I did that. But, when I'm recording workouts, I might have let's say maybe once every 5 workouts that I record, I'll have to pause and say, I messed up.
Yeah.
Pause, cut, and then we get right back into it. If I fall while I'm recording, I'll just fall, and then I'll get back up. And I'm saying, if you fall, just get back into it.
It's a human element. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that people like. They're like, yeah, you're not perfect when you do it. I'm like, yeah, I'm not perfect. I fall over when I'm balancing sometimes. It's not, especially if you're trying hard, you're going to fall over when you're balancing, if you're actually pushing yourself. So with workouts, I will never just blow up an entire thing, or as you say, blow it up. I will just pause it and then keep going if it's absolutely necessary. Like if I start saying something that doesn't make any sense whatsoever and I realize it, I'll either make a joke to myself and then keep it in, or I'll just say, okay, this doesn't make any sense. Let's cut, take back from 10 seconds.
Yeah.
We do have that guy who I mentioned who works on a lot of our analytics and our SEO, he is a videographer by his previous job. So he does our video for us, and it's easy to, if we need to make that edit, it's easy to do that. But as far as our like shorter videos go, oh my God, just awful. Like we'll do we could be sitting there doing takes for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
For a 3-minute video.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
It's awful. Like when we're making a video for a program page, or we're making a video for a Facebook advertisement or something, those can take hours.
Yeah.
And they're like 90 seconds. So those are tough. But yeah, for whatever reason, if I'm doing a workout, I'm very comfortable doing it, and I don't usually need to stumble. But if I'm selling something, then it's like, bleh.
Yeah, exactly. Like, bleh. I do that all the time. Either recording the intros in here, I'll have like a 3-minute burst, and then right at the end, I'll just like stumble, ramble, and I'm like, blow it up. You got to redo it. But that's cool. I think it's definitely a gift that you have, and the ability to be on camera and be so natural and just kind of go with the flow. Was there anything growing up where you were like either performing a lot? I mean, maybe from lacrosse, but I mean, you obviously naturally are like good in front of camera, good at speaking, and kind of coaching through that.
No, it's because I just started uploading a shit ton of content to YouTube, and I had to practice.
Yeah,
that was it.
Yeah,
I just forced myself to do it. And I look back at some videos that I made when I was 2013, and I watched them. I'm like, wow, it's awful. Why did anybody watch this stuff?
Yeah.
And it was, the only reason why I've gotten to the point when I don't think I'm that great on camera, like I say a lot, I'll say I'll sometimes ramble on for, a minute or two on something that is vaguely related to what I was talking about. But the only reason why I feel as comfortable as I do on camera is because I just kept recording content, and I kept practicing, and I kept forcing myself to do it.
Yeah.
And I never felt uncomfortable about putting up something that wasn't perfect, I guess.
Yeah. That's super. I'm like jealous, envious. So many people struggle with like the perfection and being like, it's not ready. It's not ready. And you're like, it's ready. Boom, send it.
Yeah. I mean, something somebody told me, and some before them told them, if you've got something that can help someone and you're not putting it out, you're hurting that person by not putting it out. So yeah, it's not going to be perfect, and it might never be perfect, but if you've got something that can help someone, don't hesitate to put it out. And I've got some people who will say, you've got some people on YouTube who will like leave stupid comments.
YouTube's the worst.
YouTube is a wasteland.
Yeah.
As is most social media. My interpretation of social media posts is just vomit. It's like you're just scrolling and you're like, bleh, and then you scroll something else, bleh, and that's like vomiting is the equivalent of commenting. Like, what's the first random thought that comes to my head? And and you did that without thinking at all. But then the creator is going to look at that and be like, why are you so mean to me, man?
Yeah, now I'm going to shut it down for 4 years because someone said I suck.
Yeah.
Cool. Where can we send people to? I like to use the end of the podcast to kind of allow you to be like, all right, come to ManFlow Yoga. Like where can people find you? Where can people connect with you? Where can people consume your content? What might be coming up? Just share it all right now, brother.
So my number one training resource that I tell everybody to do, if you want to get the results that we're talking about, if you want to follow along to a program with an actual schedule of workouts, the best thing to do is just join our members area. And this is where we put new content every week. We've got over 30 structured workout programs, over 320 workouts that are exclusively available in the members area. And that's the best way to train with me, hands down. We've also got a really cool community behind that. So we have a Facebook community with almost 1,000 people now. where people actually talk about the workouts and get motivated, and introduce themselves, and there's a community behind it. But I know that that's not for everyone. So my recommendation is, if you're just kind of dipping your feet in the water and you're trying to figure out how to to learn the poses, and get more familiar with the content, I do have a book called Yoga Fitness for Men. It was published by DK Publishers a little over a year ago now. It's extremely popular in the US and in the UK. We've sold, I think, over like 35,000 copies at this point. But I would recommend starting there if you're not sold on the whole, the programs or the workouts yet. Start with a book. It's an awesome way to learn yoga. It's called Yoga Fitness for Men. Oh, and if you do buy that book, send the order confirmation to help@manflowyoga.com. We've got a bunch of video routines that actually accompany those books, and I'll give you access to that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Ton of content, ton of stuff. And then on social media.
Too many choices.
Too many choices. Where do people find you on social media?
ManFlow Yoga, ManFlow Yoga, and it's the same at Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We had to shut down Snapchat.
Had to shut down Snap. What were you doing on Snapchat? Just videos, or was it just all randomness?
Yeah, no, I think I had it for a day. I had it for a day, and the messages and the specifically the photos that I was receiving, like, this is not the conversation I want to be having. So
yeah,
let's Snapchat.
Let's shut it down. Oh man. Dude, Dean, thank you so much for coming on and chatting yoga, and all the stuff that you do. Super inspiring, super cool. And it's awesome how many people you're helping.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Paul. It was a good conversation.
Cool. Take it easy, brother. Have a great rest of your year, your great rest of your day, and I'll chat soon.
So that was Dean Pohlman of ManFlow Yoga, and one of the big things that I took away from him is, if you have something that can help someone and you are more concerned with it being perfect, you're the asshole. Having something that can help someone, say you had the cure to cancer, but it wasn't packaged up perfectly, or it might offend some people, but you could heal someone or help someone, share that. Share that shit. And so I really love what Dean's doing, and I hope that, whether you're getting into yoga or have never done yoga, or you've done yoga a bunch, checking out his style, checking out his brand, I would definitely encourage. And he says it's ManFlow Yoga, but women can definitely do it too. And other than that, I want to thank you guys for listening. Be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review if you haven't yet. It allows me to get people like Dean on. The more ratings, the more 5-star reviews we have, the more subscribers, the more listeners. Then we're able to get cool people on and have these really cool conversations and inspire you and let you hear from different ends of the spectrum. What I find really cool is last week we had Anna Douglas, a female yoga instructor that has her own studio, and here we have Dean. He's a male yoga instructor, teaches yoga, but it's all online, and does some events and classes. But there's so many different ways to help people. There's so many different styles, and my goal is for you to find something that resonates with you. Other than that, go have an awesome week. Go have an awesome weekend. I'll catch you next time on the Down Dog Athletics Podcast.